advice that I would give to students from my perspective as a librarian. So like what I do is I help students navigate like information online, and a lot of times that also has to do with their online like identity as a scholar or as a student or a researcher. So finding things like the conference hashtag and like having conversations there. I don't build websites necessarily. I do know when I went to graduate school, one of our requirements was we had to build a website for ourselves, for like our CV, and we just used like one of those out of the box like Squarespace type things. So I don't know if I found that really helpful because it was very easy. All the hard work was done for me. But I think what I can really recommend to people is if you are a student who is interested in publishing or has already started publishing, or you are someone who's interested in having a career as a researcher or a scholar after you're finished with your degree, is to start early with looking at your scholarly identity online through some like scholarly platforms. So there's a couple that I would recommend. The number one thing that I would recommend is getting what we call an ORCID. It's spelled ORCID, and you can go to the orchid.org website and register for that using your UTSA credentials. And what that is it is like a unique identifying number for you as a scholar. So for instance, my name's Emily Johnson. There's like 5 million other Emily Johnsons. I have an ORCID ID number that kind of follows me through my career and through all my publications. So that way people know if they go search for this ORCID number, it's integrated into databases and journals and things like that. If they go search for this ORCID number, they're going to get the correct Emily Johnson. And you can build a scholarly profile on the ORCID website kind of around that, where you can have a whole list of your publications, your conference presentations, your grant funding, just like a CV, but like on steroids online. So that's my number one recommendation, is to definitely look at an ORCID and start that early, because it's much easier to do it now when you're first starting out and you only have a couple of publications than it is to go back later on and add it all on later. That's also really helpful for anyone who's interested in going into academia as like a faculty member. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to be asking you for during the promotion and tenure process. So they're going to ask you for your ORCID, they're going to ask for lists of all of your work. And if you have that already done, if you've been working on it over the years, as you get there, then it's going to make your life a lot easier. The other things I would recommend would be, again, if you're publishing, take a look at Google Scholar. They create a profile for you, like an algorithm will create it, and you can go on there and make sure that everything's up to date, and it'll provide you with numbers that will help you demonstrate the impact of your work. So it'll provide you with like citations and all sorts of stuff to help you really sell yourself as a researcher. And again, with any of these profiles, it's so much easier to start it early than it is to go back and do it again, like later on. So those are my number one recommendations. The library can help you with that. So just a little plug for us if you want to reach out to us, but then also wherever you end up, generally librarians can help you with that. As the other things that I've just found professionally in my career helpful is honestly just not being afraid to reach out to people and ask questions. Every job I've ever gotten, I've never really professional networking is important because of course, you know, as you meet people at conferences, it's important to add them on your LinkedIn or maintain some kind of communication there. But also just every job I've ever gotten, I've always really benefited from just not being afraid to reach out to them and ask questions. And I found that the most helpful way that I've maintained my network is not necessarily just the easy bit of where you find them on LinkedIn and you add it and then you're done, but then also collaborating with people. If I hear something cool that's going on in libraries, I'll send it to the people that I know who might find it interesting. So just maintaining that personal connection, I think, is really important and gets lost in the digital space. I think that's all that I have. Yeah. So my number one thing, get an ORCID.
Hey, I'm Shruti Anand. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for Career Engaged Learning. which is a wing in UTSA for all of our students and alumni for any career opportunities, experiential learning, things like that. So the 5 tips that I would give someone on how to create social media networks formally and informally are: number one, know your stakeholders. Know what they want, know what engages them, what makes it fun for them, and know what kind of information they're looking for from you. So that's priority number one. Just know what your stakeholders want, and your stakeholders might be different. For us, it's students, employers, alumni, families. There's a whole ton, but basically just know what they want. The second tip would be to research and get the tools that will help you and assist you while creating these networks. So these might be tools like scheduling posts on social media, or your content management system like WordPress or Wix, things like that. And also a good reporting and analytical tool, just to know what's working on your website, what's working on your social media strategy, and then you can fix and tweak things accordingly. The third thing is that if your company or organization has brand guidelines like UTSA does, know them well. You will know the hex code and the fonts at the back of your hand. So yeah, just know those brand guidelines pretty well, because you will have to follow them at least in the formal networks. Some organizations like UTSA also have editorial guidelines, and that's really important for content writing. So for your blogs, articles, and anything, even for your captions on social media, that's something that you would need to follow, again, especially for formal networks. The fourth tip that I have is, depending on the size of your organization and the size of your team, you might need to collaborate with people outside of your marketing and communications team. And that's the advantage with this kind of collaboration, is that you get introduced to ideas that you might not have within your team, and enjoy that whole collaboration. Enjoy the exchange of ideas. Don't get offended when they have ideas that you don't agree with. Keep your ego aside. But yeah, that's another thing that you might need to do, and that's something that we do here, because it's just 3 of us in marketing, 1 full-time staff and 2 students. So I do collaborate with people outside of the marketing team just because I need help and I need more ideas. The fifth tip and the last tip is actually the second last tip, but have a realistic plan for creating and sustaining these platforms, and take into account the number of people in your team, take into account the number of people creating the content, the graphics, the videos, the images, all of that stuff, and then also take into account any formal processes you might need to follow for setting these social networks up. So if there's any guidelines, again, like UTSA has guidelines for creating these platforms, you need permissions. So if you have an organization that you're working with, just make sure you know what those barriers and loops might be that you might need to follow. And a bonus tip is that enjoy what you're doing. Marketing changes every 2 minutes. Like, there's a new trend, there's something new happening every time. So don't be too hard on yourself. And if what you're doing is honest, it's sincere, it's not offending anyone, and you're respecting everyone, then you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be perfect. So yeah, that's the last tip. Just enjoy what you're doing.
Hi, I'm Beth DeVilliers. I work for UTSA, the School of Art. I run our social channels. I create content for marketing efforts, recruitment efforts. I maintain the website, and I do a lot of graphic design and photography for the department. But my experience in marketing and web have run the gamut of a ton of different experiences. I've run social channels for other people. I've helped people grow their channels and their websites and build websites and branding and whatnot. I would say that the most important thing for a public-facing person, like if you're an artist or a performer, or have anything to offer that you want people to learn about you more, always have a website. Having a polished website is super important, especially if you're offering services or if you're an artist. It's really important to appear professional. I think we've all had the experience where we go to a website that maybe doesn't have the most time and attention and thought put into it, and those don't always come off as professional. So having a clean website, even if it costs you a little bit of money to get it produced, will set you apart from anyone else that doesn't have that. Always have some sort of like a QR code that can link to your website, or a business card or something whenever you're at in-person networking events that will easily connect people with you once you leave, once you've made that in-person connection and that impression. A lot of the experiences and the places that have got me to where I am in my career are the ones that have helped me understand and be qualified for jobs. So one of the biggest tips that I have for young students is always take an opportunity. There were opportunities after I graduated with my MFA that on paper may have seemed like underpaid or not a great fit, but I saw them as an opportunity to learn and to grow. And I took those opportunities, and those networking opportunities, those connections are gonna help you really build a network of support for yourself, so that you start having more people coming to you saying, hey, I work with so-and-so, and they're looking for someone, and I think you would fit because I love working with you. And a lot of the work that I've gotten and a lot of the places I've gotten in my career are because I took those opportunities that at the time may not have seemed super important or paid the best, but I learned these little nuggets of information that I didn't learn in school. And those have propelled me to where I'm at in my career. For instance, I have contracts with the McNay, with Art Pace, and now I'm shooting installations for Ruby City. And those are amazing opportunities that I gained just from like a 5-minute moment where I was assisting with someone on a shoot, and they took the time to explain something to me that was a skill that I gained in that moment and took forward into my career and got bigger and better opportunities to where I'm at now. As far as social media, that's a great way to build a network and to find people that are like-minded and reach out to them. Like, you can always find, it doesn't hurt to reach out to someone and say, hey, I see that you're doing something in my field. If you ever want to need an assistant or need any help on a project, those are the best ways to jump into those and to gain those network connections. And you'll also learn skills from those opportunities as well. And always post about it. Always tell your story, because your story through your social channels, through your websites, those are the things that people are gonna, when someone thinks of you for a job or an opportunity, they're gonna send them straight to your website. They're gonna send them straight to your social channels. And if you have a great presence that represents you in a really authentic and genuine way, then they're gonna be able to see if you're a great fit for that or not, just from looking at your content. And so always take those opportunities to network and to build your story, both in person as well as on your social channel. As far as content for social media, storytelling is always the best. And of course, if you are putting your artwork on your social media, just be aware that that there are terms and conditions with Instagram that you can have your artwork taken and used. So that as from the art world, that is something that has to be a choice, because you want people to see your content and your artwork, and you want to get yourself out there. And especially for up-and-coming artists, a lot of times that's our only way to do that, because we don't have gallery representatives or anything like that. It's the same goes for actors and performers. Social media is the easiest way to get your voice heard, but you also have to know that your content can be taken and shared or reproduced by Instagram. I've seen it happen. So just be wary of that. But it's still such a great, fantastic tool for networking opportunities and to get your name out there.
Okay, so I'm Katia Diamante. I'm the social media specialist here at UTSA in University Strategic Communications. So I handle the at UTSA social media channels, that's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I also give counsel around the university to other social media managers on how to run their accounts a little bit better, any troubleshooting, anything like that. We work with photographers around the university. We work with videographers. We work with other places around campus to help us create content or to create content alongside them. Starting off with, I'll start with social media. Social media it's so changing. So one of the things about social media, and everybody always says like, well, that's just life, right? Like the only constant is change. Social media is specifically very changey, for lack of a better word. It depends day by day. I mean, we know what's happening with Twitter right now. Everything's kind of changing, and then they decided to leak, or not leak, but like release their algorithm, and then say probably like 20 minutes later, this is actually going to change like every 48 hours. So that's actually a really good model for how algorithms change on social media. So really when somebody tells you, well, these are the best practices, it's more so like these depend on your audience rather than the actual platform. Because what happens is, with the platform changing often, you can have all of these different strategies and best practices that you use to create your content. And obviously, if you're seeing that a video is doing better than a static image, then you can produce more video. And that'll be part of your strategy. But realistically, there's no real way to game it. There's no like specific times that you can post unless it works for your audience, or any specific hashtags that work specifically for like that platform, whatever it may be. So what we try to do here is we try to make it as audience specific as possible. So with that being said, one of the big things that we focus on here, and we like to focus on, is accessibility. So making sure that the content is accessible to anyone, that it has captions, that pictures have alt text, all of these things that you can also do on websites to make sure that if they are looking at your social media, you're not potentially excluding someone from being able to access your content and enjoy your content. The other thing we look at is being descriptive in our captions. So not only is it about giving out as much information as possible in your caption, but also being engaging, like not just saying, hi, we're going to have this event and so time at so-and-so place, but also saying, hey, come and join us, because that's what we want. We want to foster community. We want to make sure that if people come and join us, it's going to be fun. We're not giving them a, hey, come and join us at this thing that is going to be super boring and you're never going to like it. So that's one of the other things. Something else is engagement. People seem to have this idea that social media is just kind of like post it and there's going to be a bunch of people and you're going to go viral because you're a big account. That's not the case at all. You have to be constantly engaging with other people to be able to have that same level of fun and also just growth in your channel. You can't just kind of post it and leave it and go away, because it just doesn't work that way. Social media is social. The other thing we don't like to do is, so a lot of people will try to use flyers on social media, and one of those things is one, that they're not accessible most of the time. Two, if you're using a QR code on there, that's definitely not accessible. And it makes it a little harder for your audience to have to go and take a picture on their phone or have somebody else put it on their phone so they can scan it off of someone else's phone. And it just creates a big hurdle for your audience to jump. They're not going to do that. So we like to use clickable links. We like to use Instagram stories specifically for this to make sure that you can click through and have a good time that way. Social media is, like I said, it's social. It's very, depending on your audience, you can either create content that is really, really engaging to them, and after a while, you'll start learning kind of how your audience responds to certain things, how your audience is going to respond to trends. Trends are huge on social, so sometimes the trends will apply to you, sometimes they won't. And being able to discern that is a really nifty skill that you can apply yourself to. And sometimes it's just one of those things that you learn as you go and as you manage social channels and as you analyze them and analyze your numbers and your analytics getting out of them. So when it comes to websites are a little bit more complicated. One of the big things on websites, of course, is accessibility. but also making sure that they're mobile friendly. So there is quite a bit of studies out there that show that a lot of people are actually going on their cell phones and accessing the internet and websites through their phones rather than their laptops or their desktops. So that's something that's really important whenever you're building an engaging website, is to have something that's mobile first and that's also accessible on the phones. So for example, if somebody is using a screen reader to access your website, you're going to want to make sure that everything is legible, that there's no random little codes or anything like that. Sometimes people will use black hat SEO, which is just another term of saying, well, I'm going to use these specific things to kind of game the system. And thankfully, Google has started to kind of crack down on that. But that would mean like keywords at the bottom of pages and like white text to kind of hide it. That's not accessible. So that's one of the really good things about being accessible on your website. The other thing is design-wise, you want to make sure that whenever you're designing a website, it's not just pretty, but it's functional. Because it can be as pretty as you want it, but if it doesn't make any sense and it's not user-friendly, then your bounce rate is going to be sky high, because people are going to land on the page and say, well, this is really cute, but I don't know where to find any of my information. So they're going to jump. So one of those things to keep the bounce rate low and to keep it engaging is to have great copy that is full of those keywords that you want to use, but don't write your copy around those keywords. Find a way to insert them in so that it's seamless and it doesn't seem like you're just trying to add keywords in to your copy. So that means that adding keywords and choosing keywords are going to be integral to whatever you put on your website when it comes to your copy. And that goes for photography as well. High quality photography goes really, really well. High quality videography is extremely important, because any kind of blurry pictures or anything like that can affect your bounce rate, because if it's not high quality, then why am I looking at it? It really affects your reputation and the appearance of, what's the word? Trustworthiness online. Yeah.